everybody. Welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing another sci-fi flick. We'll be discussing The Day the Earth Stood Still. Just finished watching it for free on YouTube. If you would like to watch it, that is where it's currently hosted. For now, again, they change up quite a bit with the licensing rights. But you know how we do it. I will give you my overall impressions and grade after reading the logistics about the movie. If you have not seen it and would like to, based on my comments or just out of curiosity, if you have not seen the movie, once I give my grade, there will be a plot synopsis and character development containing spoilers. We'll be discussing any similar movies or major themes. So I definitely had seen this one before. I enjoy this one. I like sci-fi movies, I don't know. But let's see what it says. It is rated PG-13. It's originally released in 2008. It's a sci-fi / drama movie. Has a runtime of 1 hour and 44 minutes. You can watch it for free on YouTube. It says, Klaatu, played by Keanu Reeves, an extraterrestrial visitor to planet Earth, becomes the herald of upheaval on a global scale. As the world's governments and scientists race to understand what is happening and how to stop it, Dr. Helen Benson, played by Jennifer Connelly, and her stepson come to understand the chilling ramifications behind Klaatu's statement that he is a friend to the Earth. It says it was released in 1951, definitely not. But it did $233 million at the box office and a budget of $80 million, directed by Scott Dickerson. 71% liked it on Google, 20% liked it on Rotten Tomatoes, and 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Google says why to watch that it's frightening, thrilling, and suspenseful. Overall I liked it. I don't know, nothing super unique, but this is one of the I've seen before, so I know was going to happen. But I enjoy the major themes. I thought the cinematography was good. There was no off-putting characterizations, and again, you get kind of the breakdown of society, which is always a rich writing plot for me. And so overall, I'm going to give it a B+. I found it entertaining, at the higher end of entertaining. So if you have not watched it and would like to, you're going to shut off this video now because there will be spoiler alerts. So the movie opens up, and you see Keanu Reeves playing this guy named Klaatu, and it's like 1924, and he's in India, like camping alone in just this like blizzard, and he goes up and finds this big like glowing blue orb thing. And so then you get fast forward to present day. The movie takes place, somewhere on the East Coast, New York area, in present day to 2009 or whenever the movie was released. And so you meet Dr. Helen Benson. She is teaching a class. She gets invited to something by a student afterwards. Kind of looks like maybe he's trying to hit on her, but she declines. She's an astrobiologist, and she drives home. You meet her son Jacob Benson, her stepson. They argue about how many times they're gonna eat pizza, and then Helen gets a phone call, and it's like a government order. It's like, is this Helen Benson? Here's your social security number. There's gonna be a convoy to pick you up momentarily. And so very quickly she gets picked up. She's not too happy about that. They get loaded onto a big military plane. There's a bunch of people there. They all compare what they do for a living. They realize they're all scientists. And so they realize something as big is going on. And so they get taken to this big military facility. And Michael Grainer is played by John Hamm. He's kind of running everything, and he knows Dr. Helen they have a previous relationship. I don't know if it's sexual or if it's just professional, but they know each other. And so they get the breakdown. They're all briefed, and it's like, there's a comet that doesn't have an elliptical orbit or has a hyperbolic orbit, and is heading straight towards Earth. And when we calculated the trajectory, it's going to collide imminently with Earth. And so they have like an hour until the comet hits, and so they're all on the plane. They I don't know if they're on the plane or just in a room, but they brace for impact, and then nothing happens, and then they realize that this is a spaceship that is landing. And so this is like this big blue orb thing. It's like kind of moving around, similar to the same type of encapsulation manifestations as the movie Knowing that we discussed with Nicolas Cage. But a big military presence. It lands like in Central Park and somewhere in New York, and big military presence. This humongous. First just a figure walks out. It's kind of like this like big gooey fleshy thing, and they shoot it, and so it gets injured, and they rush it to the medics. And then this big automaton ship thing comes out, humanoid figure with this like one big laser eye thing.
and if they shoot at it, nothing works. And so they rush this organism into medical. They have a doctor. I don't know if it's Dr. Barnhart. I think that's Benson's dad. But regardless, there's a minor character. It's either Dr. Myron or Dr. Barnhart. I think Barnhart was the one later in the film. Regardless, the doctor starts to remove. He extracts the bullet, and then also starts just peeling away the flesh. And it's like some sort of like placenta type substance, and it's encapsulating what looks like to somebody like developing into a human being. And so very quickly after being exposed to Earth's atmosphere, Klaatu takes on a completely human form. Like I said, for the alien invasion type of movies, I like it when they're more closer to humans as opposed to like big robots fighting, like War of the Worlds or something like that. And so he fully develops into a human being, and then they have him. They want to inject him with something and interrogate him. The main kind of military presence is Regina Jackson. Once the things have landed, the president and vice president get moved to secret locations, so they're never like physically in the movie. But Regina Jackson is the head of the Department of Defense or whatever, and she's the main military thing. So she's like, national security interests, and is like, we're going to interrogate him. Helen Benson has some reservations about how we should treat him. And so they give him like a classified solution to inject him before interrogation, and she swaps it out for water, and injects him, and then like whispers in his ear to run. And so Klaatu gets taken in this room with this investigator, and they start asking him questions on a lie detector test, and he is able to basically not control, but like start asking the other guy a question. And kind of like controlling him, but like can like control his electromagnetic fields through just being connected on this lie detector machine. So he tells the dude to take off his clothes, like not naked, but like give him a suit, and then he like taps into the electrical system of the entire facility, and like has this frequency go out where it's all their communications channels go down, and they're having this piercing sound that renders them unable to do anything. And so he casually walks out of the facility. He goes to a train station. He gets a tuna sandwich by just like touching the machine and having it come out. He sees a couple of dudes fighting. He just kind of walks away, and then he goes and like sits on a bench, and he has a little cut on his just like sutures from where the bullet was removed. And so Helen Benson is back at the house. Jacob Benson doesn't have school. The entire world's now aware that there's aliens, and so everything's kind of shut down. They're not sure what the intentions are, so Jacob doesn't have to go to school. But Helen gets a phone call, and it's I don't know if Klaatu like used a different voice or something, but it was something like, hey, I'm your friend. Can you bring me my medicine? She had like pocketed some just like gray goop looking stuff that I guess is medicine, and so Helen goes and picks up Klaatu. Jacob's with him. Jacob doesn't know that Klaatu is the alien. Helen does, but he rubs this this goo stuff on his shoulder, and the the wound heals. And so the characterization for Jacob is his father was in the Marines and was killed in action. He was like a building engineer, not like a fighting guy, but he was killed. And so he calls Helen by her first name. He's young, 5 or 6 or whatever. And so kind of a stepson stepmother relationship. Helen seems to be very loving the entire time. Jacob's a young kid, so he pushes back sometimes. Regina Jackson has the other. I just have Colonel Teabag up here because it's played by Robert Knepper, who's Teabag in Prison Break, which I really enjoy that show. But he didn't. He just says Colonel, so I just put Colonel Teabag. But regardless, they have some missions where they have some drones go to try to kill this big humanoid thing, this big glowing sphere still in Times Square, and with this big humanoid robot-looking thing. And so they have some drones trying to kill it, and the drone is able to intercept the the launch codes or just the frequencies or vibrations from the machines and turn them off and crash them. And so they're not having luck with that. What they end up doing is they enclose the big humanoid thing. And just like a defense thing, it's not like alive. They just enclose it in like this big metal casing, and they take it to a secure facility. It's way deep under the ground where they can try to drill into it, or have a like a fire chamber. If everything goes wrong, we can just incinerate it. And so regardless, that's what's happening. Klaatu, Helen, and Jacob are driving, and he has Klaatu has Helen drive him to have a meeting with Mr. Wu. And so Mr. Wu is an old Asian fellow. They speak in some Chinese, but basically Mr. Wu is also an alien. He's been living amongst the human beings to see how they behave and track stuff as well. And so Mr. Wu is like, they don't change, which is completely, absolutely fucking true. We'll get to the major themes later, but he's like, they don't change, they're nasty, they're selfish. Yep, all completely true. And he's like, we need to start. And Klaatu seems to be like the more like senior alien or something, just like the person more in charge. Mr. Wu is like, we should initiate the protocol, and Klaatu is like, if that's your official report, we will do so. But Mr. Wu and Klaatu is like, we have to prepare for your departure, and he's like, no, I'm going to stay among the human beings, even though they're kind of a shitty race. It feels like an honor to be one. Absolutely not. Being a human being is a disgusting fucking experience. There's nothing valuable about our society. Absolutely nothing. And so, regardless, Klaatu and then has Helen drive him kind of just to the middle of the ocean. And at this point, Helen's like asking, are you a friend to us? And he's kind of giving like, not obscure, but just like vague answers. Like he says, I'm a friend to the earth, which was in the description. And so at the beginning they think it's, to help the human beings, but it's really just to protect the earth. And so they go drive into the swamp area, and he summons one of these orbs, and a bunch of like sea creatures or just the local wildlife starts going into these orbs. And so this is happening all around the world. A police officer rolls up. Klaatu is able to, Jacob is now aware that Klaatu is the alien, and Jacob, is like, my dad would have killed you, I want to kill you. So Jacob's not too happy with Klaatu. But regardless, the cop draws his gun, and Jacob's like, no, don't hurt him. And the cop's like, I won't. And Jacob's like, I'm not talking about you, or I'm not talking to you. And so Klaatu touches the car and is able to move it just because of the electronics or whatever, smashes the dude, kills him, and then is able to take the goop, this gray goop stuff, rub it on his teeth, and revive him by putting the electricity from the car back in, restarting the circuits in his brain and his heart. So he kills the guy and revives him really quickly. So again, he has the ability to like interact with electromagnetic stuff, as well as have some special medicine, kind of his powers. And so that's what happens there. And then Klaatu is like, there's nothing we can do. And that's when Helen realizes that, there's a line like, you're not here to protect, save, help the humans. You're here to protect the earth from the humans. And so he's like, correct. And so basically what happens then is they have some scenes where they're trying to drill into this big humanoid thing that's like the Klaatu's like defense machine, and it breaks the glass drill bit in 24 hours, so they go in and fix the drill bit again. And you have John Prisco in there, which I mixed up those, Kyle Chandler and John Hamm. They they don't look extremely alike, but I mixed them up when I was watching the movie. But regardless, they have some soldier go in there. They're trying to drill into it, and that's when you can see like that this big thing is made up of a bunch of little like metallic ticks or bug looking things, and so it starts eating through the drill bit, and then it's a direct scene. And then the guy in there, the technician trying to repair the drill bit next to this thing, and they're all outside in this big super secure, firebomb chamber where they can just blow this thing up if something goes wrong. And so the guy begs to get out, and they're like, no, we can't. So he dies in there. And then they see these metal tick things start to eat away at the glass. So John Driscoll presses the incinerate button, and it does nothing. And so he tries to save his own ass. He's trying to swipe his card, like, oh, I'm gonna get out of here. And then another minor character, but a senior military dude's like, this whole facility is locked down. Nobody is getting out of here. So the other minor character's only one that kind of just like lets it happen, knowing that he's going to die inevitably. And so these metal tick things bust through and kill everybody in the facility. And so you have this big swarm and Colonel Teabag with a big army presence outside the facility. When the swarm comes out, they start shooting at it. And each time they hit it with explosive, it just gets bigger. And so that's not working too well, and effectively the plot is, these metal ticks are going to eat everything up and give the Earth a chance to reset and restart. And so that's why they're building an ark just to preserve as many species as they can with these blue orbs. Get very similar to Knowing, the movie Knowing. But regardless, the military's kind of, we're just kind of done for. There's nothing else we can do. They go to Helen, back with Helen, Klaatu, and Jacob. Helen's like, give us another chance, and Klaatu's like, I spoke to your leaders, and she was like, that's not our leader. So he takes him to apparently her father's house, which I believe is Dr. Barnhart, and he's got a Nobel Prize in biology or whatever, which that prize is completely fraudulent. It's ruined my entire life, and obviously, but Brad's life doesn't matter, never has, never will. And so Klaatu just starts, he's got a big blackboard with a bunch of equations, your Ricci tensors and your whatever Albert Einstein's equations were that don't even need to do equations for my proofing. But Klaatu just starts filling in the universal formulas, and Dr. Barnhart's like, could it be? I have so many questions for you. And so, as if equations really matter for empirical proving to an extent. But regardless, Dr. Barnhart's impressed with Klaatu's impressed with Bach, the music, and just seeing the more arts and scientific part of the world as opposed to the military. And so from there, Jacob calls the police because he sees that it's a wanted criminal on the TV, even though he knows it's like an alien. And so he calls the police. There's a big helicopter presence come. Klaatu, Helen, and Jacob run. Dr. Barnhart just staying at home. It's too late to drive away in the car. And so Jacob admits that he called the police. They come down and swoop up Helen, and Klaatu was able to again reconfigure the launch sequences and have the helicopters basically blow themselves up. And so Jacob's now scared of Klaatu. He tries to run away a little bit, almost trips on a almost falls into a river, tripping off a small bridge. Klaatu helps him, and so then Jacob's like, I didn't want to kill you, Klaatu. And he's like, yeah, really? He's like, well, not anymore. And again, it's a young child characterization. So they're driving back. They're going back towards the city, or trying to get to the major sphere. The only blue sphere left is the one in New York City, which is Klaatu's, escape thing. And so, these big swarms taking over the world, and Helen is convinces once all of the military attempts go to shit, Regina Jackson is able to agree with Helen. She's like, let me try to change Klaatu's mind, maybe he can help us. And Helen's like, okay. So they meet back up, I forget how, it doesn't matter, but Klaatu's like, I'm not sure if I can stop it at this point, but I can sure try. And so Jacob takes Klaatu to his father's gravesite, and he's like, you saved the trooper, the guy that he hit with the car. And Klaatu's like, there's only so much that I can do. Which again, being even in a sci-fi movie, it's even it's not possible to revive somebody from the dead. But at least if they're critically injured, if you cut off your hand or cut off a finger, you put it on ice and try to sew it on real quick, is at least something doable. Whereas opposed to if he was able to raise dead people, it'd be not consistent with the power or with the just his characterization. So a touching scene there, and that's when Klaatu really kind of changes his mind, seeing the love of Helen and Jacob. And I guess that's when they meet back up. And so now they're just trying to race to get to New York or Times Square or Central Park to see if we can stop it with this big sphere thing. And so they're running, this big swarm is taking over everything. Helen and Jacob both get infected, and Klaatu's like, they're dying, you guys are dying. And so, Helen just was worried about Jacob, and Klaatu's able to just hold their wrists and summon these little metallic things that are in their skin and in their body, eating and killing them into his body. And so they're under this, just an overpass, and because they're with Klaatu, he's able to keep away the ticks. And so he runs, or kind of walks through this big tick storm, gets back onto his orb ship thing, and is able to discontinue or turn off all of the ticks. So there's just a bunch of metallic ticks laying around everywhere. But the destruction of Earth has been saved. Or at least the destruction of the human species has been saved. At this point, I don't think we should save the human species. I think we go for World War III. I really think we just purge everything. And So that is the end of the movie, and Klaatu zooms off in his big spaceship, and human beings get another chance. So that is the end of the movie. I found it thoroughly entertaining. Definitely have seen it before. In similar movies, knowing any of the Alien movies, I think I Am Number 4, which is a movie I really like, is another type of thing where it's just the aliens are humanoid as opposed to these big metal things, or extremely different anatomically. And I just think it's sometimes more interesting, or at least just I'm not against extremely different anatomical aliens in movies. Just this writing scripts haven't been strong enough. I didn't like the worlds very much at all. And so that is the end of the movie. And major themes: are there aliens amongst us that are anatomically very similar? Yes, 100,000 million %. Are there government programs to snuff out aliens? Fucking obviously, that's entirely what's going on. But the funny thing is, it's like people just can see that, again, we talked about in my language litigation and integration series, people thinking scientific denial, scientific skepticism, or healthy skepticism, when it's just flat out denial. But it's like, like when people look at like the mafia or something, when they have codes of omerta, and it's like, silence, silencio, and they're able to go through a good period of time without people really knowing the mob exists. And suddenly you throw that into national security with the funding of taxpayer dollars. You don't think there's secret government people that think like they're a part of a brotherhood and they're protecting their country and they say nothing about anything? Just like that French team we didn't know anything about. So it's like the seeing people deny stuff is just pure scientific illiteracy, and then people think that they're being skeptical and they're just flatly denying fucking human behavior. And so, obviously we've discussed the extraterrestrials, aliens, UFOs at extensive detail in the language litigation thing. I just like entertaining movies. And sci-fi, and when society breaks down, is, again, I've said it a million times, a genre or type of script I really enjoy. So, again, similar movies, we talked about major themes, discussed that. So, brings us to the end of this movie review. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.